my gosh, the secret to happiness. I've been looking for this for years. Oh, I found it in a book. Come on, guys. What's going on here? Why is it that on Amazon there's hundreds of books on how to be happy? Do we really think that in a book, by the end of it, we're going to get to some orgasmic state or just like, oh gosh, I'm happy. Oh. And it's just like this permanent orgasm that never ends. And the funniest part about all these books is that you look at the 1-star reviews and there's like, yeah, I'm still not happy after reading this book. And I mean, what was that person thinking? That you were going to finish the book and all of a sudden you're in this permanent state, this orgasmic state of happiness and bliss and joy. There's no problems. And it's just, ah. And then I looked even deeper and I was like, what's the definition of happiness? I mean, right now, I'm asking you, what's your definition of happiness? I mean, put it in the comments and we'll start to see that a lot of people don't really know. And they often confuse happiness with pleasure. And I want to break some traditional beliefs around happiness that really get people lost and really prevents them from living the life they want. And it makes them feel like they're always lacking. When we look at the definition of happiness, Oxford says happiness is a state of being happy. Okay, wait, what? Anytime that you have to use the word or a variation of the word to define the word, then I don't think you really know what it means. So then that makes me think, well, what's the definition of happy? And happy is simply a feeling of pleasure. And this is according to Oxford Dictionary. And that's what really boggles my mind because happiness is not pleasure. And if Oxford can't define it, then what are we left to do? Because how are we going to achieve something if we can't even define it, if we don't even know what it means? This is where it gets really interesting because if you don't define it for yourself or have greater meaning and a grasp of what makes you happy in this life, then billion-dollar brands are going to define it for you. And they're going to create a whole system where you're over here and you're unhappy because you don't have the thing that they sell. These industries are peddling pills, they're peddling all kinds of books. Just walk down a mall and look to the left and look to the right, and you'll see what I mean, that you're lacking. You're not one of them. Walk into our store and you can be happy just like us. I have a really interesting take on this because I've been coaching thousands of guys for the last decade, and a lot of guys will come into my program, they'll be kind of unhappy. And by going through my program, they end up on the other side. They may not use the word happy, but they're crushing it in life. And that's, I think, what a lot of people want to feel is that they are progressing and they are moving forward. And so when we take a look at my clients, then I can see, hey, what was the biggest change that these clients are making? And we're talking thousands of guys. And the biggest change is simply living in alignment with their values and making progress on meaningful goals to them. We didn't sit down and say, hey, this is how you become happy. We sat down and said, what is the life that you want to live? And who is the man that you want to become? And by moving closer and closer to that world, then you are becoming by default happier because you're creating a life on your own terms. You're becoming the type of man that you've always wanted to be. And it is simply not about like, hey, I need this thing over here in order to get this. It's actually just the process. It's the pursuit. And so I think you should really look at happiness more so as, am I progressing towards the life I want? And the key words is progress. Like, am I becoming who I want to be? Because if the answer is yes, then you are likely experiencing more happiness than if you weren't doing that. And the goal here isn't 24/7 state of like insane happiness where it's orgasmic. Often with happiness, we don't even realize that we have it, but we definitely realize when we don't have it. When your life is in a state of progress, whether that's personally, professionally, in your relationships, your health, you feel good. That is the feeling of happiness, because when you tell yourself like, hey, I'm not happy, and you're just focused on happiness, your body is signaling to you like, hey, something's out of alignment here. Something's not right. Like, I'm living in a way that's not right. And that's actually a good thing. It's trying to course correct your life and the choices that you're making and the path that you're on. So I wouldn't view that if I'm unhappy, something's wrong. It's actually just a signal, like a bat signal saying, hey, we need a hero here. Mainstream thinking is really bad. Like, it's just going to tell you things like, hey, be grateful, smile more, When you're pouring coffee, really listen to that coffee come out, and that should just make you feel happy. Take a hot bath, light a candle, try lavender, clean your house, and just you'll feel so happy, living that minimalist lifestyle. Your life is still very much the same. You're just sort of being more mindful about things in your life and just being more present, which is good. You should be more mindful and present, but that's not going to lead you to a place where your actual life is changing. Because at the end of the day, the reason why you feel unhappy is because you're living out of alignment. Something's not right. Being present while you pour or cook something isn't going to change the fact that, like, hey, you're working a job that you hate. Like, the majority of your waking hours is spent unhappy, or your partner is, absolutely insane, or you're single and you want to be in a relationship, or you have some sort of, drug or alcohol problem that's masking the pain of actually facing reality and doing hard things in order to change your life. And the deeper you go in the rabbit hole of trying to find happiness, it'll always take you to Eastern philosophy. And Eastern philosophy basically says eliminate desire, and that's going to eliminate your suffering. The problem is we live in the 21st century in a Western world where desire has led to some of the greatest advancements in human history. And if we didn't have desire, we would all still be living very much like a caveman. When that Eastern philosophy was created, this is created by monks like thousands of years ago in the mountains. And that might make sense for that reality in that world, but to actually apply that today isn't going to work for the majority of people. I have goals and I love progressing towards my goals. And I think if you're on this channel, you're someone too who enjoys having goals. The pursuit of becoming a greater version, the pursuit of success. I mean, that's a great feeling. The process, I'm not saying like the eventual outcome is where you're going to find all this happiness, but just the journey itself is where you can find a lot of joy. When I look back, it is the moments within the journey where I found the most happiness. From my experience of coaching thousands of guys, I don't think that happiness is something that you necessarily achieve. I believe it's the result of making positive life choices in your life that have led you to this greater feeling, which means that happiness shouldn't really be the goal, right? It's more so a result of something, right? A confident person doesn't try to be confident. He's simply confident because he has a strong skill or ability in whatever he's doing. I would start with just start doing more things that make you come alive. Those things often we've forgotten. And we just stop doing them because we're focused on trying to find happiness in a book, in a product, or in a pill. What are the things that just make you come alive? Because I know that when I'm surfing a wave and when I drop down that wave, that's a great feeling. I know that when I'm having a great dinner with friends and we're laughing and just shooting whatever, just having a good time, I feel really good. And in those moments, I'm not like, oh, guys, guess what, guys? I'm feeling happiness. You don't even really notice it, but you feel like this is what I want to be doing with my life right now. Like there's no other place I'd rather be. That's how you know you're doing the right things. When I'm with my girlfriend and we're watching a movie, or we went to a basketball game, or we're going to a concert this weekend, all that stuff feels right. That stuff feels really good versus just, like frantically reading a book and trying to do these gratitude exercises and just being more mindful while I pour a cup of coffee. I think those are like little 5% things that you can do. But 80-20 here is really just living in alignment to your values and making progress on those things. And if that's difficult to fathom, then just what makes you come alive and bring that back. Often we stop doing the things that make us come alive because we get distracted with life. The billion-dollar brands aren't going to say, hey, actually happiness, it's usually things for free, or it's usually like very low cost things with people you enjoy. You actually don't need any of these brand clothing or luxury items. So that wouldn't work. So to find your version of happiness, you're going to have to break sometimes some social beliefs around what makes you happy. Because for some people, maybe working a lot or working really hard does make them happy. And there are some people where that is what brings them joy. And that goes against social belief, because then it's like, oh, work-life balance, oh, you're doing it wrong. And that's where it can get difficult, because what's socially accepted is usually something that is purported by a billion-dollar brand, right? Like buying this house or buying this car, having this type of clothing, all these things that we're fed, where for some people, they might just want to like travel the world with a laptop and live, in any country and not really make that much money. I'm not saying that's the way to happiness, but if that is somebody's version of happiness, it does require that you're going to have to break some social beliefs. Social constructs create this world that we live in, and we try and navigate within that. But what if that social construct goes against some of our core values? That means that we won't be able to progress towards things that matter to us, which means that won't find that state of happiness, that orgasmic feeling. It's really not like that, I imagine. And the biggest mistake that people make is confusing pleasure with happiness. Pleasure is short term, and it typically requires no effort. Think of drugs, think of porn, think of binge watching TV or social media, video games. Anytime you take pleasure to excess, it typically ruins someone's life. Whereas with living in alignment or progressing towards things that matter to you, you take that to excess, that typically just means your life is gonna, progress faster, right? You take it to excess, you're gonna be taking a lot of action towards the life you want to live. And if you are truly in alignment, it wouldn't destruct your life, versus if you're taking drugs to excess, that's pretty easy to see how you're going to self-destruct. Or if you're taking food to excess, then, you're going to become overweight and you're going to have health problems. Pleasure is easy. And I think it's one of the silliest forms of satisfying yourself, because you don't have to do anything for it. And you can think about how much of the world is actually constructed for the person to consume pleasure. Anything that changes your state, it's $1 billion brand, right? The porn, the social media, Netflix, anything that changes your state, nicotine, anything, the pills, all that stuff is changing your state. If you walk into a pharmacy, that whole thing is basically just changing your state, whether it's the pills or it's the candy aisle or it's the junk food aisle. Everything there is about changing quick hits of instant gratification. Whereas living in alignment to your values and vision and progressing there, that's going to require a lot of work. That's going to require tough decisions. That's going to require real courage. That's going to require consistency, which is really difficult to do. But over time, you can start to build momentum, which means you can really live the majority of your life in a state of what we could call happiness, which is a state where you are living in alignment to who you are. You're becoming who you are, and that feels good. This is a much healthier version of finding happiness versus Oxford's definition of just happiness is a state of being happy. I imagine the person who wrote that definition was laughing. They're like, they'll never get it. Another common mistake is thinking that if I'm having negative emotions, then I must not be happy. If I'm not in a state of happiness, then that must mean that I am unhappy. But negative emotions are actually necessary signals to help guide you in life. These are good. And if it's good for you and it's helping you make better decisions and choices and change something, then that's not necessarily unhappiness. That's more of a guide that's helping you get closer to who you want to be. So it's important to have those. Otherwise, we would always be doing the same thing that we're always doing, and our body and minds wouldn't be giving us any signals that we should course correct. When I started this business and I was really broke, I was going through a lot of negative emotions because I was really battling the resistance of the social expectations that you're supposed to have a job, you're supposed to do it this way, you're breaking the rules. And I was breaking through a lot of those social constructs, which meant that I had to go through a lot of negative emotions. It wasn't this, fairy tale experience where I just quit and then, hey guys, I became super successful and here I am. It was really challenging. That whole process really built a lot of character. It really made me into the man that I am today. So those negative emotions are there to build you, which means if you really look at what we've done, you're invincible, because the goal here is to live in alignment to your values, your vision. So you're progressing towards the life you want, the man who you want to become, good things. And negative emotions are simply just there to help you course correct and help you become stronger and break through a lot of social constructs. An analogy here would be, it's not about getting to the top of the mountain and just I can't wait till I get to the top. It's about the pursuit. It's about the journey it's about the challenges and enduring this whole process where you're going to find your joy, where you're going to find that quote unquote happiness, which means right now you're on a journey. And if we change our perspectives to this way, you can feel a lot happier. And in fact, the negative emotions are simply just there to make you stronger. It's not about being on top of the mountain. It's about the pursuit of getting to the top of the mountain and the meaningful experiences that you're going to have in between. And in your life, that looks like you just living in alignment to your values, progressing, being on a journey, doing things that make you come alive with people that make you come alive, and not chasing happiness, because it's not something that you're ever going to achieve directly. It's the result of you making good choices in your life that bring you closer to the man and life that you want to live. I'm curious for you, what was your biggest takeaway and what you thought about this video? So leave a comment below so we can continue the conversation. If you got value from this video, please give it a like so I know what content that you guys like. I'm creating this stuff for you. If you like this no BS, straight to the point content that breaks through a lot of mainstream thinking, then just go ahead and click subscribe and then hit the bell notification so that you get an alert on the next videos and you don't miss anything. And if you want to go deeper with me and learn more about how to become a stronger, grounded man and create an epic relationship, and if you want to learn how you could work with me, then click the link below and you'll see a link to a free training, which you can access. It's about an hour-long training. It's not going to be available forever. And honestly, it took me like months to create that thing. So you better check it out. I made it for you. So click the link in the description and I'll see you guys there.